Hey, what's up guys? How you doing? It is Lasty here. Welcome today to my thoughts on some FIFA 18 gameplay. Now, I was recently invited out to Los Angeles by EA Sports, who, once we had watched all the press conference and all of that stuff, trailers for all of the new games, we were allowed to actually go ahead and play on the demo versions, I guess you would say, of these games. And I've played, over the past few days, around 20 matches of FIFA 18. My intention today is to give you my thoughts and opinions on what I've played. And I've played probably some of the most FIFA 18 out of the YouTubers that went to EA Play. Just trying to get you in the mood for FIFA 18 because it's only a couple of months away, so it's time to start thinking about it. Now, obviously, it is far too early for any gameplay to be actually shown on screen. This video is literally me telling you as much as I can, as much as I can remember, and I've asked you guys on Twitter for your thoughts and opinions and what you would like to hear about, literally just from my experience of playing around 20 games. So this video isn't visual or anything, you know, you're not going to see any groundbreaking like actual gameplay of FIFA 18, but I'm going to be talking about what I've actually played. So if you don't want to look at my face for the next however many minutes, you can feel free to like leave this on in the background whilst you're doing something else and just literally listen to it, kind of like a podcast or something, I guess. So, to be clear, I was playing what I would say is a demo version of the game. It had kickoff mode and the journey. I only went on kickoff mode and I was on the Sony PS4. Everybody I played on FIFA 18 was a real life person. We literally went into kickoff and one person was red, one person was blue, and we played that way. I didn't play against the AI at all. Actually, I played against the AI for like 45 minutes of a game on the Nintendo Switch, and that was actually pretty impressive. But for the rest of the time, I played against literally YouTubers and stuff. The people I played against, let me read them off the list. I played against FUTWIZ Dan a few times. Kazooie94 I played a few times as well. I played a game against Maverick from the Maverick Wolves. Angry Nate, who works for EA. It was great to meet him as well and play a few games against him. I played Ches once or twice as well as Roma Colin, the Roma esports manager, and Paul Marr, who also works at EA Sports. So I got quite a wide variety of different people to play. The various different teams that I use whilst playing these 20 or so games on FIFA 18 were Real Madrid, Bayern Munich, Juventus, Man United and Paris Saint-Germain. So again, I tried to use some of the big teams from the big leagues. From those teams that I used, the standout players were, and I'm going to read them off the list again. For PSG, Cavani definitely was my most highlighted player from that team, and Di Maria. From Man United, it was Pogba, who was a beast, and Henrik Mkhitaryan, so that was good. He's a great player on the game. From Juventus, Cuadrado and Dybala, very quick, great dribblers of the ball, definitely stood out to me. For Real Madrid, we had Modric in the midfield, was an absolute, just a great player, dribbling on point, and he could score goals as well. We had Gareth Bale and obviously Cristiano Ronaldo, the cover star. And then for Bayern Munich, Thiago was amazing, and Lewandowski, a little bit like Cavani, really solid player up top. So now I'm going to go through a set of different groups and talk within those groups about different things within the game, literally just from the stuff that you guys have tweeted me, you know, the sort of things that you would like to know. The first one, graphics. Graphics looked much improved from previous versions, and to me that was surprising. I wasn't expecting many like graphical changes because I think FIFA 17 is a really good looking football game, and I'm more looking for like stability and stuff in game and server stability and all of that stuff over graphical changes. But it did look really good. Lots of lighting improvements. For what it's worth, like the crowd members seemed like more realistic and different body types and stuff. And there was like pitch confetti, which adds atmosphere to the game. And the Atletico Madrid stadium looked particularly awesome in the sunshine with confetti all around the pitch and stuff, as well as like, I don't know, like just things around the running track, around the outside of the pitch. It looked really good. And just as an overall for the gameplay, before we like delve deep into each and every category, it was slower in general, but whether or not that was because we were playing kickoff mode as opposed to FUT, which is normally a lot faster, you know, just based off previous years and stuff, that could be a reason. But it did feel slower, and it just felt like you had more control of the ball if you knew what you were doing. So I'm going to somewhat work up from the goalkeepers, and then we'll get to all the more exciting stuff as we go on. But you guys definitely wanted to know about goalkeepers on Twitter, and what I can say about them is that from one-on-one situations when a striker is through on goal, I thought that goalkeepers actually felt very solid and difficult to beat, which I think is a good thing, because typically in a one-on-one situation, the goalkeeper is rushing out trying to like close that angle, so the striker's got a very small spot to actually fit that ball into, and the pressure is on the striker, right? So the goalie's like almost in control, and I almost felt that was a thing in FIFA 18. I saved quite a lot of one-on-one situations with my goalkeeper. De Gea was very good for Man United as a standout, and then the rest of the goalkeeping situation, from long shots and from corners, from like set piece stuff, it seemed that goalkeepers were somewhat out of position. I was able to score quite a lot of long shots against goalkeepers, chip shots, and goalkeepers almost felt quite static from from corner kicks. So if you were already if you were in front of the defender and you could nod that ball in, the goalkeeper was never going to get to it. So ups and downs for goalkeepers, but again, loads of time for them to sort this stuff out. This is just based on the gameplay of a very early build that I played. Next up then, we have defending. Defending seemed harder, in my opinion, which I think is actually a really good thing. It almost seemed like there was a lot less AI involvement, which again is a perfect thing, because everyone's always moaning about, I don't know, just choose your CDM, buzz around with him and let the computer defend for you. It seemed as though you needed to be a lot more in control of what you were doing, which I think is going to create more of a skill gap and mean that the better players on the game, the people that actually can learn and know how to defend, are going to have a better time on FIFA 18. There's less of the easy stuff where everything is just done for you on the game. It was a lot more noticeable in our first few games when none of us had played anything. We hadn't really gotten used to it, where we would play through balls and our strikers would be so clear one-on-one against the goalkeepers, because the people weren't in control of their defenders trying to move them and maneuver them into the right position to block that through ball or make that tackle. They were just almost letting them try and do the work for them, and that's when we got through one-on-one against the goalkeeper. So after a bit of time, when people started figuring it out, you're seeing a lot more people in control of the Jerome Boateng and the Mats Hummels and stuff in their defense, and the Sergio Ramos and whatnot, trying to make those tackles before that ball got played. Otherwise, to try and turn around with the defender and chase that on-running striker was actually really difficult, and they seemed slow in that instance. Next up then, we've got quite an interesting part. It is dribbling. So, movement on the ball itself. What I noticed is that, well, and quickly noticed as well, is that running whilst sprinting meant that you were, like, not as good, because the ball is further away from your feet. You're in less control of the ball than you would be normally. So just literally taking it slower with that slower gameplay, giving yourself more time to think about what to do and not unnecessarily sprinting. Obviously there's a time and a place to sprint, right? But unnecessary sprinting with the ball led to me getting dispossessed a lot more often, whereas literally just holding the ball without sprinting, moving in and out of defenders, was really, really fluid, and I liked it a lot. Without even doing like the no-touch dribbling or skill moves or anything involved, it was just like the dribbling felt really fun, especially with players like Thiago and Dybala and stuff like that. People who are really good on the ball. If you're not sprinting with it, that ball is glued to their feet. The two types of dribbling that you can do which don't involve actual skill moves, I would say, are like the LTRT dribbling, where you literally quick shift the ball in different directions, sometimes pull it back and stuff. That seemed to be a lot less effective, especially when you've just been on the sprint button. Specifically, FUTWIZ Dan uses a lot of LTRT dribbling, because in this FIFA 17, it is extremely effective, and he was struggling a little bit when trying to do that, because obviously it just wasn't as effective. And then the no-touch dribbling, I myself use a lot of no-touch dribbling on FIFA 17. I do that whole like tap it and change direction to get like a speed burst. That seemed to be a lot less effective as well. So it's, I think, when you're on the ball, and I think Alex Kazui said this as well, like no-touch dribbling, where you do it in a certain way that they almost step over the ball. He couldn't seem to master that, or couldn't seem to do it. So whether or not that's in the game, not in the game, or just needs a little bit of tweaking, we're not quite sure yet. But those two sets of dribbling seemed less, like, I guess you would say, overpowered than in previous FIFAs. Moving on then from dribbling to passing. Passing itself felt more difficult. Again, a little bit more like you need to be accurate and you need to be doing the correct types of passing rather than just abusing mechanics. Because let's say in this FIFA, in FIFA 17, you can receive the ball at quite a pace. Like that ball can be absolutely rushing at you, and you can do a first time perfect pass to the other player, right? You can pass that move on really quickly without taking a first touch, without getting the ball under control. Seemed less accurate this year if you tried to do that. It seemed more realistic in the fact that you're going to need to either let go of that sprint button or just take the ball in, take a touch, and then get the ball out of your feet before you distribute it. So I like that a lot. But what that did mean is that when you're used to playing FIFA 17 and doing a lot of driven passes and stuff, they seemed a lot less effective because the recipient of the ball would take a long touch if he was like sprinting towards the ball or something like that. And some passes I noticed went like askew a little bit and not to the player I wanted it to. I'm not sure whether that was me not being used to the PS4 controller, or again, me maybe holding sprint where I shouldn't have been, or trying to do a pass that wouldn't really work in real life. There was a little bit more, I'd say, realism in the passing on FIFA 18. What I found especially effective was when I wasn't really sprinting and I was just doing like LB passes. So quick 1-2 passes between like a cam and a striker, or the two strikers if you had a duo. Literally LB pass, and what that means is like pass and make a run, and you could literally work your way up the pitch in diagonal lines, and the defenders, because defending is a little bit more user controlled rather than AI based, it was a lot easier to get past the defenders that way, really passing the ball around as opposed to just literally sprinting through them like we do in previous FIFAs. So from passing to crossing, which is sort of passing, right? It seems as though the crossing mechanic has been like totally overhauled. You know, we've currently got this thing where we like normal cross, or we can do an LB cross to get it like earlier into the box, or if you want to do different styles of crossing, you do like a double tap or a triple tap. They've been pretty ineffective in previous FIFAs, and I don't think they worked. From what I could tell, it was based on different buttons you press with the crossing, and I didn't necessarily go into the menus and double check this, but it just seemed to work for me a lot better. Like LB has always been the early cross, whereas this time it seemed to be like a lobbed cross, or the other way around. So LB and RB, one of them was like a driven cross and one of them was like a lobbed cross. So I can't remember which way around it was. I'm pretty sure RB would be driven, or R1 as it was on the PlayStation controller. So like an R1 cross would be driven, and you would power up the bar to go like more powerful on the drive of the cross, and then you'd be holding RB to go driven. So whereas this FIFA, you hold the power to get like loft and stuff, right? So on corners, if you just tap cross in, it's going to go really high and loop, and if you hold it down all the way, it like just goes lower and lower and more driven and more powerful. This time it's based on what button you're holding, I'm pretty sure, and like the double triple taps and stuff aren't really a thing anymore. So that was one of the first sort of big things I noticed, but I completely screwed them up the whole time and wasn't doing very well with them. Crossing seemed a lot more difficult, and you almost need to aim perfectly as opposed to almost like holding backwards and crossing in, because you know that's just going to go to the back post. Again, more learning for me to do on that. So from crossing to set pieces, like let's just like move on, you know, because crossing is basically a corner but just from in play. Corners themselves, I scored quite a few front near post headers, and again I think that was because of the fact that I was using like Cavani and Lewandowski, good players in the air, nice strong brute target man strikers, and then the goalkeeper positioning wasn't so great, so if I was able to win the header, it was basically going in the back of the net. Free kicks, I can't really give a huge opinion on because I didn't score one. I don't even remember really having one in an attacking position, right? Whereas I know a lot of other people did, and I watched Kazooie score one against Castro, I think it was, and just from watching that particular free kick, it almost seems like they might have adjusted that whole... This year's free kicks are terrible, right? The balance is just... It feels like a randomness. You're not sure if you hit 3 bars of power and hold up on the analog stick, it could still go like flying off over there, whereas you want it to just go over and under the wall. It seemed like maybe they've brought that back a little bit, so that you have more control over it as opposed to randomness and like flying over the bar and whatnot. But again, those sorts of things are like still got loads of time to be changed and tweaked and sorted and stuff. But it seemed as well from the one free kick I literally witnessed, Kazooie scored a banger against Castro. Seemed like a really nice one, and hopefully they're kind of like that in the game, because I love scoring free kicks. So corners, free kicks, penalties is the other one. A slight change in the actual penalty system. This year there's been a lot of complaints about penalties, and I guess there's two areas of that. The first one is the run-up itself. Because you have to like physically run with the player first before pressing shoot and stuff, people like run right or run left, and you can almost give away, or you can, as the goalkeeper, know which way they're going to go. Of course you can bluff it, but it looks kind of unrealistic, right? A player like skews off to the right and then runs back in the middle and then shoots off to the left or the right. It's not really great. And then the other area of penalties that people really dislike is like the goalkeepers, and the fact that you can literally score and it goes past his hand, whereas really in real life they would have just like stuck their arm up and grabbed it. And what I can tell you about penalties is that they've changed that initial run up, so you no longer like run off with the shot before you press the B button to shoot, or the circle button to shoot, whatever it is on PlayStation. You literally press that button first, so you load your shot and then your player starts running, and that's when you're gonna obviously then choose your direction. So a little bit between, like halfway between what we've had on previous FIFAs and then what we got on FIFA 17, because you can like adjust your run up and stuff, but of course you just load the shot first before you actually take it, as opposed to like running off in weird directions, and it didn't look very good. Goalkeeper wise, again, I had like 1 or 2 penalties and I sent the keeper the wrong way each time, so I couldn't tell whether if he went the right way he would have saved it or let it in. So again, that's something that I don't really know about. Maybe some of the other YouTubers will have experienced that a bit more and can tell you whether or not goalkeepers have been fixed or tweaked or whatever you want to call it. Okay, so probably one of the more interesting parts, shooting, right? You know, trying to score goals. What was effective, what was not effective, and were things as overpowered in different areas as they were in the last year? I'm sorry this video is going on forever, but I just want to literally try and get out as much info as I've got on FIFA 18 for you guys. Shooting. So there's 3 categories I've got written down here. We've got low driven, we've got long shots, and we've got finesse shots. Finesse shots seemed as good as ever. Like, they're always pretty useful, right? But from outside the box, I noticed that they seemed a little bit more powerful. Less arc to them, but more like whippage, and they looked spectacular. Like, I scored 1 or 2 which had a lot of power behind them, which I don't know whether they would change or anything, or that almost ties into the other parts of shooting that I'm going to talk about, but they seem to be like proper whip benders rather than like a fluffy little, you know, curled shot that has no power behind it. So I'd say they look more realistic, and I'm excited to do more of them in the game. Low driven shots. Low driven shots were a weird one for me, because when you get into that position, you know what I'm talking about, is when you're running into the box and you're going to shoot across the goalkeeper, low driven underneath the goalkeeper. The goal that we've all scored thousands of times on this game this year, that was still effective, right? Because let's face it, in real life you always shoot across the goalkeeper. So yeah, that was as effective as normal. The low drivens, you know, fly into the back of the net. They look really good, obviously. But what I actually had like an issue with the low drivens, or what was different, I should say, was the time you had to press or to double tap that button was shorter than what we've had previously. So on FIFA 17, like if you're through and you're composed, you can like literally full power the shot, and you know you've got like a second whilst he's taking that stride before you need to press that button again before his leg goes through the ball, right? Whereas on FIFA 18, in certain situations, I skied the ball over the bar because I had less time. The player was ready to shoot, so I needed to ram that shot up and bang, press that button again. Otherwise, the shot was just going to go over because I'd overhit a normal shot, right? I need to tap it again really quickly so that the player can unleash the driven shot. And I think what that will do is mean that you will only take the driven shots in the situations where you're super composed, which means you'll use driven shots a little bit less often, because I'd say they're probably overused this year. And in certain situations where a player isn't as composed, that's when that time to shoot actually comes down, and you've got to like really double tap it, almost like just literally a double tap as opposed to power up and then tap, like you do currently. So I think they've worked on them, and I think they'll actually be a lot more balanced than they have been in FIFA 17, where everyone uses them all the time for every single shot. Myself, like, I'm a massive hypocrite for that. I do them all the time, way too much, if anything, right? And then we have long shots. So long shots were super overpowered, right? I was scoring bangers left, right, and centre. I think a combination of that goalkeeper positioning like we talked about, and just the shots in general being like, I don't know, maybe the sliders were up too much or not quite tweaked enough to the right level where long shots should be. It just so happened that if you got that space outside the box and you ramped up the power bar, that ball was pretty much going to go in the back of the net. And like volleys and stuff, I scored a complete and utter banger against FUTWIZ Dan, and he'll admit it as well. It was a beautiful goal. It was stunning to watch on the replay as well. The ball sort of deflected and then came to me in the air, and I almost Thierry Henry'd it against Man United from back when he used to play it for Arsenal at their old stadium. You know, where he like flipped that ball up, turned and volleyed it. Like, I almost hit one of them. It was similar to that. Absolute beaut of a volley with Ronaldo on his weak foot, sailed into the back of the net across the goalkeeper, top bins. It was a beautiful goal. But again, maybe the sliders were a little bit too high. That sort of thing might not be able to happen as easily as it did for me. So they've probably got some work to do on the shooting, like just the sliders and stuff. Get them a little bit more balanced, I guess. Okay, we're on to the final couple of things then. We've talked about the main gameplay. People on Twitter want to know about shielding and skill moves, and then what's overpowered. So those are the three final categories. Shielding seemed less useful than it has done especially in FIFA 17, where it's super OP, right? But I still found myself able to do it quite successfully with players like Cavani and Lewandowski. So maybe, again, they've just balanced it somewhat so that it really is those big, tall, strong target men kind of guys that are strong on the ball. Because this year, you can almost do it with anyone, whereas there's like a force field between defender and player, right? Just because you're holding LT or L2 on the PlayStation. So I think it's been worked on somewhat. Again, it could just be because it was kickoff and not FUT, and I'm used to playing FUT. But it seemed less overpowered, less likely to be completely and utterly abused on the game. But in the right situation, using it with a big striker could earn you a bit of space, or save you a bit of time, or earn you a bit of time to then play a through ball to an on-running Di Maria or something like that. So that's shielding. We then have skill moves. So there are a couple of new skill moves in the game. I think on the trailer you can see a couple as well. Kazooie would be your guy to really know about them. I didn't think I even did a new skill move, but I saw Kazooie trying quite a lot of them, and Marius Yosef as well. Both like great skillers on the game. And I was watching a game that those two were playing, and they were like looking at the replays of a couple of the new skills. One of them would look like almost like a reverse Balassi flick. You know how he does the Berber spin to the flick and stuff? Well, he did that almost like backwards. So I don't know really how to explain it. There's also one which changes your direction like 90 degrees as opposed to... Well, no, not as opposed to, but it changes your direction 90 degrees as like another option rather than a Magidi spin or a whatever, or a Berber spin or whatever that would change you at an angle. And there seemed to be one which they could only pull off with Cristiano Ronaldo. So maybe that's a thing where the cover star gets his own skill move. Who knows? And then finally, just to complete everything here, what would I say was overpowered? You know, what players were good, what things were good in the game. So, long shots. Long shots were super overpowered, and I think they'll probably be less overpowered as time goes on and as the build of the game gets closer to the launch version. Again, I think that's just a sliders thing, but yeah, they were very overpowered, and I won a lot of my games because I take long shots quite often, whereas like, I would beat FUTWIZ Dan because I take long shots quite often, whereas Dan is someone that plays very methodically, gets it into the box, and basically scores a tap in every time, but he works that play really well and doesn't ever shoot from outside the box. That's probably why I beat him a couple of times. And then, like speedsters, great players on the ball with a lot of pace. So someone like Dybala, who's very good on the ball as well as having pace, if he can slow down and wiggle past the defenders and then just absolutely gun it, you're going to get past those defenders who are more like controlled by the user, and if they make a little bit of mistake, you're completely through on goal, and then it's your job to slot that ball home. Cristiano Ronaldo is obviously a fantastic player, felt super overpowered on the game. overpowered is probably not the right word, but he felt amazing. He felt like levels above everybody else, which, I mean, Messi wasn't on the game. They didn't have Barca on that version, so I can't you know, judge the difference or anything. But I think Ronaldo's going to be amazing this year. He's the cover star, right? You can see like his dribbling technique, his running technique. You can also see that in the likes of Sterling and Robin, who have like distinct like sprinting techniques and stuff. And just all the players look very different in game. So there's not just one generic way to run if you don't have a Ronaldo like run. There's like 5 or 6 in game. So players all look different and it all looks fluid and just a lot more realistic. So overall, I was really impressed with the game, and I can't wait to get on like a FUT mode. Hopefully at like Gamescom or just obviously later in the year. That would be amazing. To be able to judge the differences, see what they've worked on and stuff. So those are my thoughts on FIFA 18. Hopefully you guys have found this useful, you've enjoyed, you just got some info on a game that isn't out yet. And thanks so much to EA Sports for, 1, flying me over to Los Angeles to go to EA Play, and 2, for letting me play the game, even in whatever stage it was, nice and early, so that I could make this video for you guys and tell you a bit about the game itself. Hopefully you're now hyped a little bit more for FIFA 18. I can't wait for the game to drop. Let's face it, FIFA 17 is coming to the end of its cycle, and we're all getting a little bit bored with that one, I guess, at this point in time. But that is always, you know, always going to happen at this point in the year. So I'm buzzing for FIFA 18, just counting down the days now. Thanks for watching. If you found this video useful or you've enjoyed it and stuff, smash a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you guys are new around here for loads more of this stuff when I get it, and for FIFA 18 when it drops and all of that great stuff. So have a great day, and I'll catch you next time. Peace.